Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into a topic that I'm sure you're all familiar with, even if you don't know by name. Straw man arguments.
Oh, absolutely. We've got a ton of great listener questions and source material on this.
And it's something we encounter constantly, right? In everyday conversations, online debates, even in the news.
It's everywhere, and it can be so frustrating to deal with.
Yeah, you feel like you're talking past each other rather than actually engaging. So today, we're going to break it all down. What straw man arguments are, the psychology behind why people use them, how to spot them, and how to respond without getting sucked into a pointless fight.
And hopefully by the end of this, you'll have the tools to navigate these tricky conversational waters a bit more smoothly.
Right. So let's start with the basics. What exactly is a straw man argument?
Okay, so imagine this. Instead of directly addressing your argument, someone twists your words, exaggerates your point, or just puts words in your mouth that you never actually said.
Okay, I've definitely been there.
Then they attack that distorted version, this easily refutable version of your argument, as if it were your actual stance. That's the straw man. It's a distraction, a way to avoid engaging with the real issue.
It's like setting up a fake target that's much easier to knock down than the real one.
Exactly. And often it's a deliberate tactic.
So why do people do this? Is it just to win arguments, or is there more to it?
Well, there are a few different reasons. Sometimes it is about trying to dominate the conversation, especially in formal debates or politics, where appearing strong can be more important than actually being right. But it's not always so calculated.
So there's more to it.
Yeah. Our brains naturally use mental shortcuts, right? We like quick, simple answers.
Heuristics, we've talked about those before.
Right. And strawmen kind of play into that. They present a simplified, often exaggerated version of a viewpoint that fits neatly into pre-existing beliefs. So instead of carefully analyzing the actual argument, people might just accept the strawman version because it's easier and confirms what they already think.
Ah, so confirmation bias is at play here.
Big time. We're more likely to believe things that support our existing views, even if they're not accurate. And strawmen make that really easy by painting opposing views as extreme or ridiculous. It's almost emotionally satisfying to dismiss something so outrageous.
Right, it's like, oh, well, that's clearly wrong, so I must be right. But that doesn't actually address the real argument.
Exactly. And then there's the emotional side of things. When we feel threatened or attacked in a discussion, especially about something we care about, we might lash out defensively.
That's when things can get really heated.
Yes. And that's when strawmen can pop up as a way to protect ourselves. Instead of engaging with the nuances of the other person's argument, we create a distorted version that's easier to attack and that validates our strong feelings.
So it's almost like a coping mechanism in a way.
In a way, yes. Like, imagine someone's upset about a proposed law, right? They might say something like, those who support this are trying to destroy our way of life.
Bit dramatic.
Exactly. It's probably an exaggeration, a straw man fueled by their emotions. It helps them feel justified in their anger, even if it doesn't reflect the actual arguments being made.
It's about feeling right, not necessarily being right.
Exactly. And then, of course, some people use straw men intentionally as a tactic to win debates or sway audiences. They might deliberately misrepresent their opponent's position to make themselves look better by comparison.
Classic political strategy.
Right. And this works because, again, people often want simple, easy-to-digest arguments. So a catchy, even if completely inaccurate, straw man can be very effective in persuading those who aren't paying close attention or who don't have all the facts.
It's all about creating that impression of victory.
Exactly. It makes the straw man user look strong and decisive, even if their argument is built on sand.
And sometimes those false impressions can be hard to shake off, even after they've been debunked.
Yeah, it's a real problem. There's actually a term for this, the continued influence effect. Basically, the straw man, that easily digestible distortion, can stick in people's minds even when they know it's not true.
So even if you point out that it's a straw man, the damage might already be done.
Sadly, yeah. And clarifying the real issue often takes much more time and effort. It's not as catchy or memorable as the straw man, so it can be an uphill battle.
It's a bit unsettling.
It is, but knowing about it is the first step to combating it.
Okay, so we've talked about the why behind straw men. Now, let's get practical. How can we recognize when a straw man is being used, either intentionally or unintentionally?
Well, one big giveaway is oversimplification. Pay attention when someone reduces your nuanced argument to a simplistic black and white statement.
Like taking a complex issue and boiling it down to a soundbite.
Exactly. You might say, I think we need to consider some regulations on certain types of online content, and then come back with, so you want to censor everything on the internet? Big Brother is watching.
It's like they're ignoring all the details and specifics.
Yeah, and they're likely amplifying it with extreme language. Watch out for words like always, never, everyone, or no one. These are often used to make your argument sound far more radical than it actually is.
It's like they're creating this caricature of your position.
Yes. And another thing to watch out for is when someone tries to tell you what you really think, even if you never said it. They might say something like, so what you're really saying is, or I guess your position is.
And then they follow that up with something completely off base.
Right. It's like they're putting words in your mouth and then attacking those words.
So frustrating. Another thing I've noticed is when people take your words out of context, like they might quote you, but leave out crucial parts that would change the meaning entirely.
Absolutely. That's a classic strawman tactic. They might focus on a minor detail while ignoring the main point, or they might twist the meaning by ignoring qualifiers or the overall context of your statement.
It's like cherry picking the bits that fit their narrative.
Precisely. And sometimes it's even more blatant. They might just make up things you never even said. They'll put forward this completely fabricated claim and then attack it as if it were your actual position.
It's like arguing with a phantom.
And then there's the subtle art of using loaded language to twist your argument's emotional tone. So they might call a reasonable suggestion a radical scheme, or reframe a cautious approach as complete surrender.
Changing the words to change the feeling.
Exactly. It's all about manipulating the perception of your argument without actually addressing its substance.
So if someone's response makes you think, wait, that's not at all what I meant, there's a good chance you're dealing with a straw man.
Absolutely. Trust your gut. If it feels like your words are being distorted, they probably are.
Now, it's important to remember that not all straw men are intentional,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes it might just be a genuine misunderstanding.
That's right. It's crucial to make that distinction. Someone might genuinely misinterpret your point, especially if it's complex or nuanced.
It happens to the best of us.
Exactly. So how do we tell the difference between a deliberate straw man and an honest mistake? Well, first, always check back with your original claim. Does their rebuttal actually address what you said?
Compare it side by side.
Yeah. If they're arguing against something completely different, it's probably a straw man.
Right. If I say, we should invest more in renewable energy, and they respond with, you want to shut down all power plants and live in the dark ages, it's pretty clear they've missed the mark.
A genuine disagreement would engage with your actual point. They might say, I think nuclear power is a more efficient solution, which, even if you disagree, is at least addressing the same topic.
It's about staying on the same page, even if you're having different interpretations.
Exactly. Another clue is their tone and overall approach. Do they seem genuinely interested in understanding your view, or are they being dismissive and hostile?
Like if they're saying things like, that's ridiculous, or come on, you can't be serious, that's a red flag.
Yeah, it suggests they're more interested in winning than in actually listening. Someone who's genuinely misunderstanding you is more likely to sound confused or ask for clarification. They might say, I'm not sure I follow. Can you explain what you mean by X?
They're open to being corrected.
Exactly. And that brings us to another key point. Their reaction when you point out the misrepresentation. Do they acknowledge it and try to adjust their understanding? Or do they double down and insist on the distorted version?
Like if you say, actually, that's not what I meant, I was saying, and they just brush it off. That's not a good sign.
Not at all. Someone who is genuinely trying to understand will be receptive to your clarification. They might say, oh, okay, I see. My apologies. I misunderstood. But someone using a straw man tactic will likely ignore or dismiss your attempt to correct them.
So it's all about that willingness to engage in good faith.
Right. It's also helpful to look at their overall pattern of argumentation. Do they frequently misrepresent other people's views? Do they have a habit of jumping to extreme conclusions?
If it's a recurring pattern, it's likely intentional.
Exactly. If it's just an isolated incident, it might be an honest mistake.
Now, what if you're still unsure? Is there anything you can do to get more clarity?
Absolutely. A good strategy is to ask clarifying questions. You can say something like, can you tell me in your own words what you understand my position to be? Or, I'm curious, how did you come to that interpretation of what I said? This forces them to either articulate your argument accurately or to reveal that they've distorted it.
It's like holding them accountable for their interpretation.
Precisely. And remember, if you're not entirely sure, it's always best to initially assume good faith.
Don't jump to accusations.
Right. Respond as if it were a genuine misunderstanding. You can say, I think there might be some confusion here. What I actually meant was, then gauge their reaction to your clarification.
If they're genuinely interested in understanding, they'll respond positively. If not, well, that tells you something too.
Exactly. Now, let's talk about how to respond to straw man arguments effectively.
Because knowing how to spot them is one thing, but knowing how to deal with them without making things worse is another.
Right. First and foremost, stay calm. It can be incredibly frustrating when someone twists your words, but getting angry or defensive will only escalate the situation.
Take a deep breath.
Exactly. And remember, even if they're not being sincere, you can still choose to be the bigger person by responding in a calm and reasonable manner.
It's the high road.
And it makes you look more credible. Now, once you've calmed down, the next step is to clearly restate your actual position. Don't just say, that's a straw man, and leave it at that.
Spell it out.
Yeah. Briefly but clearly reiterate what you actually said. So if they claim you said all taxes are theft, you might respond with, actually, I said that I think the current tax system is unfair and needs to be reformed to be more equitable. That's a very different statement.
You're setting the record straight.
Exactly. And using clear, specific language can help prevent further misunderstandings.
Now, what if they still seem to be stuck on that straw man version, even after you've clarified?
Well, then you can gently point out the misrepresentation. You could say, I think my point might have been misunderstood. What I actually said was, or, it seems you're responding to a point I wasn't making. Let's get back to the actual issue.
You're calling out the distortion, but in a diplomatic way.
Yes. The key is to avoid accusatory language. You don't want to say you're using a straw man fallacy.
Yeah.
That will just make them defensive.
It's about keeping the conversation constructive.
Right. Now, another effective tactic is to ask them questions that force them to defend their interpretation.
Make them think critically about what they're saying.
Exactly. You could say, can you show me where I said that? Or how did you reach that conclusion from what I actually stated? This puts the burden on them to justify their distortion.
It's like turning the tables on them.
Exactly. And if they can't find evidence for their interpretation, it might make them reconsider.
Now, sometimes, despite your best efforts, the other person just won't budge. They keep arguing against that straw man version no matter what you say.
That's when you have to decide if it's worth continuing the conversation. Sometimes it's best to just disengage.
Knowing when to walk away is a valuable skill.
It is. If you've tried clarifying, correcting, and engaging in good faith, and they're still stuck on the straw man, continuing the conversation is unlikely to be productive.
It's just going to lead to frustration.
Right. You could politely say something like, I don't feel like we're having a productive discussion anymore. I'm going to step away now.
It's about protecting your own energy and sanity.
Exactly. And sometimes strategically disengaging can actually be more effective than trying to argue with someone who's not listening.
It shows that you're not going to play their game.
Right. And it can subtly signal to others who are observing the exchange that the other person is not arguing in good faith.
It's like saying, I'm not going to waste my time on this.
Exactly. And remember, even if you don't win the argument in the traditional sense, gracefully handling a strawman attack can actually enhance your credibility.
It shows that you're reasonable, thoughtful, and focused on the real issues.
Precisely.
So to wrap up, what are the key takeaways here?
Well, first, remember that strawman arguments are everywhere. They distort viewpoints, they arise from both psychological biases and deliberate tactics, and they can pop up in any kind of discussion, from casual chats to formal debates.
And it's crucial to be able to spot the signs. The oversimplification, the exaggeration, the mischaracterization of your position.
Absolutely. Once you know what to look for, it's much easier to call it out. And even more importantly, you now have a toolbox of strategies for responding, effectively staying calm, clarifying your position, gently pointing out the misrepresentation, asking clarifying questions, knowing when to disengage, and so on.
And ultimately, it's not about winning or losing. It's about having better conversations.
Exactly. It's about preventing unnecessary conflict, promoting clear communication, and fostering genuine understanding.
And that's valuable in every aspect of life.
Absolutely. So here's something for you to think about. Now that you're more aware of straw man arguments, try to notice how often they appear in your daily life. Pay attention to the news, to social media, even to your own conversations.
See if you can spot them in the wild.
Right. and consider how this awareness might change the way you interpret information and engage in discussions.
It's like leveling up your communication skills.
And if you're really interested in diving deeper, we encourage you to explore more about logical fallacies and effective communication techniques. There's a whole world of knowledge out there.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.